The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave. Are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Okay! Game on!
Game on!
Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Please take your seat above all. We will be able to prepare for takeoff. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and liftoff.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's great to have you along for the ride on this Tuesday, November 14th. Wednesday, November 15th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you're having a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on spacedoutradio.com, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Spreaker, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music, get your horns up for Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy and Sons of Apollo. Bumblefoot is the official music of this show. Now, we're all over social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. You can also subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. It's no longer Spaced Out Radio Show, so make sure you check our archives on our brand new channel, just Spaced Out Radio. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you head on over to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR. We really appreciate it. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to sign into one of our chat rooms, either on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club, or if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag SpacedOutRadio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. If you head to our website, for $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. You can also check out our Spaced Out Radio store. We have some great T-shirts, posters, stickers in there. We have the Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editor, Everett Themer. Check out my latest blog, and if you've had a sighting or an experience you cannot explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. We also got great videos from Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers and Contact TV's Leslie Mitchell Clark. The paranormal has many different facets to it, from haunted tours to actual investigations. Let's face it, this planet is so old, there's literally thousands upon millions of ghosts everywhere. Spirits roaming around, with some even taking the time to communicate. But what if those spirits aren't spirits at all? There are many out there who believe when dealing with the paranormal, we are dealing with many demonic forces trying to coerce us humans for our souls to take back to hell. However, most paranormal investigators in intuitive state, they've never actually dealt with the demonic force. They believe that the demons that are out there are more created for television ratings rather than actual hauntings. However, to some, they are real. June Lundgren is a demonologist from the state of Oregon. She has made it her goal to send these foul spirits back to where they came from to help people get out of the evil that is blocking them from living. June, welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
I'm doing well.
It's great to have you with us. And you and I actually met just a couple of months ago as you were taking part in the Forest Moon Paracon up in Concrete, Washington, where I was a speaker. And it was great to get a couple of minutes to chat with you as our tables were side by side.
Yes, I enjoyed meeting you there, and I enjoyed the Full Moon Conference. It was great.
Do you like going to the conferences?
I do. I enjoy it because I meet new people, very interesting people, and I just like to see and meet everyone, who has dealings in the paranormal.
So, when you started investigating the paranormal, did you ever think that you would be going and attending conferences and showing off your books and telling people what you did?
Well, I've been doing this all my life, and really the paranormal conferences haven't been going around that long. The first one I went to was about 6 years ago, but I've been helping people with their paranormal issues since my teenage years.
So, are you a lifelong experiencer then?
Yeah, I was actually born this way, and I was raised for the first 5 years by my maternal grandmother, who also had abilities. All the women in our family, clear back to the 1600s, that I have been able to trace, have all had different kinds of abilities, everything from healing to being psychics and mediums.
Wow, how were you able to trace that far back, going in like 400, 500 years ago?
My mother was from Ireland originally, and she had the lineage that was written down by her mother and then her mother before her in the family Bible, and so it's all written there.
So when you say everyone was kind of spiritually connected, are we talking on a psychic level, or are we talking on hauntings, that there's been a great lineage of family members who are investigators?
Most of our family were from Ireland and Scotland and England. And so we had people that were basically what they call, what some people call shamans. We were Celtic people, and we were healers. We were mediums. We were psychics. And they would come to, my grandmother and all the women in our family, and the word would get around, and they would come if they had problems of any kind, whether it be, just somebody was dying, or somebody needed healing, or somebody, was having strange things happen in their home, and they would come and contact, the women in our family, and we would go and help them.
So as a teenager, take us back when you first started checking out your own abilities.
I was actually very young when I had my first paranormal encounter. I was 9 years old, and being raised by my grandmother, until the time I was 5, she taught me how to tell the good ones from the bad ones. And she knew that I had abilities, not only because all the women in our family do, but because of I would be talking to animals, and I would be talking to people that, weren't living. She could see them, but she knew other people could not see them. And she would just say, oh, it's her imaginary friend, that type of thing, as kids do. My first memorable one was when I was 9 years old, and I was over at a friend's house staying the night, and I heard this creaking downstairs, so I went to the top of the stairs, and I noticed the girl's dad was talking to someone or something, and I didn't think anything of it. I was about ready to go back to bed when I heard some more creaking and looked down, and here's an old wooden rocking chair, coming up the stairs by itself. And and the girl's father, Claude, he comes over, and I could see him grab the chair, and he was talking to somebody, telling them, I told you not to do that. Just leave the chair down here where it belongs. And then he saw me up there, and he told me to come down, and we had a nice little conversation about the chair. He said, there's an old woman that died in the house, and she tries to bring the chair back upstairs where she used to sit for hours on end and watch out the window. And he said something about her being, upset. And I said, no, she's not upset. I said, her son killed himself in the garage, and she just wants you to know that she's staying here until he crosses over. And, of course, Claude was surprised. So we had a nice little conversation with the lady, and we finally was able to help her to cross over. And eventually her son ended up crossing over.
That's really good that you were able to help cross them over, because a lot of people believe there's a lot of spirits stuck here, you know, who may be afraid to go to the light or just aren't sure where they belong, or maybe they don't even know that they've crossed to the other side. How do you help a spirit make that transition, even if maybe they don't know that they're dead?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I ran into such a case up in La Grande, Oregon, and I was up visiting a friend, and she says, "I need you to come in with me to see a friend of mine." And I'm like, okay. So we pulled up in front of the house, and we got out, and I was walking through the carport, and I'm like, wait a minute, you know, there's a soul here that needs to cross over. Somebody's stuck. And so we went inside the house, and I didn't even, you know, talk to the woman that was there. I just kind of said, "Oh, well, give me a minute. There's somebody over here who needs help." And I went to the recliner that was in the living room, and there was a gentleman sitting there, and he was stuck. I said, "You know you're dead, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know I'm dead." And I said, "Well, you need to cross back over." And he says, "I didn't know I was dead for quite some time." He says, "I don't understand what happened to me." And he said, "I was sitting in my chair, and then my chest hurt, and then I blacked out." And he said, "When I woke up, you know, I found my daughter-in-law and my son talking about selling my house. And I tried to tell him, no, don't do that. And they couldn't hear me." He says, "That's when I knew I was dead." He didn't understand what happened to him. And I told him, it's kind of like when a person in the living world goes into shock. They pass out, and then they wake up. Well, he went into a kind of shock, and when he woke up, he didn't really realize he was dead for quite some time until he noticed his daughter-in-law and son, you know, talking about either selling or renting out his house. So it was hard for him because he couldn't figure that out. And once he did, he really didn't want to leave his home because nobody could take care of it the way he did. So his son ended up renting out the house, and the renters came and went pretty frequently because he didn't like the way they treated his house. So he would start walking up and down the halls, making noises so that they knew it was haunted. And then the two that had it, when I visited, he was happy with them because they took care of his house like he did. But eventually I talked him into crossing over. I created a white light portal so that he could cross over into the other world, plane of existence, and be with his wife and his parents.
Was it easy for you to realize that you had this gift, or was it difficult to try and come to terms with the fact that this was an added piece of life that the majority of people out there are unconnected to?
For me, it was second nature. It's the only way I ever knew. Growing up with it and having my grandmother who had abilities, it was just, I thought everybody could do it until, you get older and you go to school and you start talking about that, and then people think you're weird. So you learn early to stop talking about it. It kind of, confused me at first. I talked to my grandma about it, and she explained to me that not everybody had the abilities as strongly as I do, and that, I would need to learn basically to keep my own counsel, because back then it really wasn't done. Back in the 60s, it just wasn't, we hadn't, quote unquote, come out. But I learned, like I said, I learned to keep my own counsel and didn't really mention much about it. I was in the military for 5 years, and you really didn't talk about it in there. It just wasn't, the place to talk about it. But I used to help people quietly on the side when they would have issues or they wanted, a reading or something like that. I would help them.
Explain to me why you had to keep quiet during your time in the military.
My godfather was a bird colonel, and he was with the OSI, and he told me when I first got in the military, he says, you really need to keep quiet about it, because, once they find out that you have abilities like I have, they'll try to recruit you into their projects. And he said, you really do not want to do that, because they were experimenting with drugs on people with abilities, to the extent of mine. And so he says, you need to keep it quiet and not talk about it.
So that would have gone into a lot of these remote viewing programs or psychic warfare that we heard during the 50s through 70s, and some people still claim are going on today.
Definitely. He warned me about it first thing when he found out I had enlisted, and he says, whatever you do, don't talk about your abilities, outside in the military, because I was stuck at a Strategic Air Command base, and I was also at Fort Ord, Monterey, California. And, there were things going on there, too, that nobody knows about.
When you got that warning from your uncle, did it kind of question why you joined the military at that point? Because obviously you didn't know of this fear if they would have found out that you were intuitive.
I didn't know that there were such things going on until, he came to visit me when I first got stationed in Texas, and that's when he told me all about what was going on and what he had been privy to, and that, I was to keep quiet about it. He said, if I'd have known that you were going to go ahead and join, he said, I would have, told you not to. But, it's the only way I could get my nurse's training at the time, because I came from a family with 4 kids and 1 income, and there's no way that they could have paid for my nurse's training.
So how did you keep it quiet during your time in the military?
I never really talked about it much, except for with friends that I knew were not, otherwise engaged. And I never mentioned it on duty at all. And I had a tendency I always lived off base so that I didn't have any issues. Because when you live on base, as I did right before I got out, they bring people in at all hours of the night. They'll bring dogs in. I don't care about those because I was never into drugs. But they also would come in unannounced to the barracks rooms. And, they would knock once and then just use the key to open it and come in. They didn't care what you were doing.
So this is interesting because I never knew this fact about the military. If they would have found out, would they have immediately escorted you to some sort of psychic program?
They're more subtle than that. They would have, sent somebody to ask me, undercover to ask me like questions about it. They would be, they would come in and they would say, I was interested in this or that, and get you talking about it and to find out basically the extent of your abilities. And somehow they would end up getting that person the undercover person to give a reading or, help. They'll come up with, oh, I need help finding this or so-and-so's doing that. And can you help me? And my godfather, he told me, that's how they work. It's very subtle. People you don't know come in claiming to need help, like they know all about it, and that's how they recruit you. And then they'll say, "Oh, we can make you, a second lieutenant. We can give you your own place, that type of thing."
So, what kind of drugs were they putting into people at this point?
Back in the 60s, they were doing experiments with LSD, mind-altering drugs, mushrooms. There were a couple of other chemicals which my godfather says, he never told me the names of them. He said, just suffice to say, he says they were mind-altering, and you would never be the same again.
So, at that point in time, it was the effects of the potential narcotics that really put the fear into you, because they were trying to figure out, I guess, how you got those abilities.
Really, they were trying to enhance them, to make them even stronger. And I'm the type of person, I don't like to be out of control. As much control's an illusion, but I don't drink, and I've never done drugs because I do not want to be out of control.
Very interesting indeed in regards to that. So when you got out of the military, obviously you were now able to become a registered nurse, and you still continue doing your psychic readings on the side.
Yes, most of the time I did the readings. In fact, 99.9% of the times I did the readings just for free and just to help people in certain situations. They would come to me, or somebody would contact somebody else by word of mouth and say, I've got some weird things going on in my house and things are moving, or my daughter's getting scratched, or my animals are being, scared and they won't go into certain rooms, that type of thing. And I would, go to the person's house and I would observe everything and see what was going on. And I would, because I've always had the ability to sense when and where and what and kind of negative is there, I would know if there was an earthbound there or a demonic, that sort of thing. And I would let them know, what they could do to help themselves, or to remove it, or I would act as the go-between between the living and the dead, so that they could either live in peace together or, cross the other one over.
Did you find that your clients that you were getting started to grow immensely and started coming to you for advice on how to maybe find a job or connect with a loved one? How did it go for you?
Yeah, people were always, coming to me and, by word of mouth. And then, social media picked up and the internet and things like that. And people started finding me through the internet. And for a long time, I didn't have a website or anything like that. It was just somebody knew somebody and the word spread. I would get people calling me, or sending me messages which, so-and-so told me to contact you because, you know what to do with this, or you can help me out with that. I'm like, I don't even know who this so-and-so is, but whatever. What can I help you with? It's kind of funny. You just get, out of the blue, people contacting you, and I'm like, okay.
So when you started realizing that this was going to be the road that you were taking in life, how did it affect your nursing? Because did it help enhance what you were doing in helping people in traumatic situations, or did you find that combining the two was very tough?
It was difficult, even to this day, to combine the two in some ways. Medicine is a science, and I've been in it for so long that I've learned over the years that most people, doctor-wise, administration, do not want anyone to know about my abilities, don't want anybody, don't want it to be like announced that I do have abilities. But I use it in subtle ways, like if a patient comes in and there's something that I feel that's not quite right, or something that I feel that should be checked, I'll just, mention to the doctor, well, we might want to check this. Or I had this lady one time who came in and she's having some dizzy spells, and they couldn't figure out what was causing it. And we did what we call orthostatics, where we have the patient, sit down, lie down, and stand up to get the blood pressure. And it wouldn't, it was normal for her. They wouldn't drop. Usually, if it drops radically from sitting to standing, then there's an issue. But this was all normal. And I thought to myself, it's her oxygen. It's just, sometimes I get what they call the knowing, and it's like, oh, it's her oxygen. I need to check her oxygen. So I checked her oxygen level, and when she laid down, her oxygen level dropped to 80, which is low. It shouldn't be that low. It should be anything above 88. And hers dropped substantially down to 80. And when she stood up, it was, 92. So there was an issue going on there. And it led the doctor to check other things. And it ended up being, that she was, her oxygen saturation and her cardiac issues were the cause of the dizziness.
Is there a case on a spiritual level that really resonates with you that you'll remember forever?
Are we talking about in medicine?
In medicine, that maybe you used your intuitiveness, or even in your intuitive work?
I think probably one where the very first time when I met someone and didn't know them from anybody, and they were introduced to me, and I shook their hand, and from the moment I touched their hand, I knew that this woman had breast cancer. And she had no symptoms. I asked her, I said, when was the last time you had your mammogram done? And she's like, oh, I just had one done a year ago, and it was fine. And I'm like, okay, that kept bugging me. And so I finally told her, I said, listen, I want you to go in, and I want you to get another mammogram now. I said that I see something there that I don't like, and you really need to get a mammogram done now. And she said, I'll think about it. So she finally got it. A couple weeks later, she finally went and had the mammogram. And they found a cancerous lump. And it was removed. And she thanked me for that. And there was another time where I had a lady that called me on the phone. And she said, well, I've got a little bit of shortness of breath, but I'm feeling fine. But I just thought, maybe I should come in and be seen. And she says, I have some right-sided chest pain, up by the shoulder blade. And I'm like, no, you need to go to the hospital now, to the emergency room, and be seen, because there's something wrong with your heart. And I said, I'm telling you straight. I said, you need to go. And I said, it's very, very important that you go. So she actually went. And she told me later that I had saved her life. That, they told her that if she had waited any longer, she would not have lived. And she comes in from time to time. And every time she comes in, it's the same thing. You saved my life. I wouldn't be alive today without it. The symptoms she gave could have been anything, but I picked up on the fact that this is what's going on with her. So those two really resonate.
When did you decide that you needed to start getting more into the paranormal and start ghost hunting? Because you've been doing this a long time, but relatively speaking, paranormal investigation is still relatively new when it comes to popularity.
I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when I was asked to be on a show called Paranormal Crossings. And it was a local show, and the gentleman that was doing it, was looking for people that, were interesting and with paranormal influence, and he asked me to do a show. So there were 2 of us that were having the show done that night, and I was the second one. The first woman went on and was interviewed, and that was done. And then it was my turn to be interviewed. And I went in and did the interview. It's an hour long, and I went home, and he said, I'll let you know, when it's going to be on the local channel, and then it'll be on YouTube. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's cool. So I went, never thought anything more about it, and I kept waiting and waiting to hear from him, see, when it was going to be on. I was going to put like a link on my website to it, and almost a month passed, and I finally got a hold of him. I said, when is it going to be on? And he's like, I hate to tell you this, but it's not there. I'm like, what do you mean it's not there? He said, well, I record all my shows on Blu-ray, on the studio's computer, and on my own laptop. And he said, none of those recorded. They simply were as if they never even happened. And he thought I would be mad. I just started laughing. He's like, you're not mad? I'm like, why should I be? I said, I deal with the dark ones. I said, this is normal stuff with me. They mess with electronics all the time. And he says, I'm glad you're not mad. Can we redo it? And I'm like, okay, we can redo it. So a week later, we went back in the studio, and I told him, I said, and this time I'll have Michael come with me, the archangel, because he's with me all the time. And he's like, okay, we're going to do it about the dark, the dark side. And I'm like, okay. So we went in and we went to the studio and we recorded it. And he said, there's one point in the show where I felt a negative come in to the studio. What happens is, if Michael is with me in the earth plane, souls will come to him wanting to go home, wanting to cross. And so he attracts them because, with his angelic energy, he attracts them. And this negative wandered in, and I told him telepathically, I said, you feel it? And he said, yeah, it's here. And so at about time index 30, the hostess says, I have felt, because I asked Michael, I said, Michael, I want you to come back. They were asking me if they could see him. And I said, well, he's not allowed to be filmed, really. I said, but, I could have him come behind us. And so just as I was saying that, he flew over, and the hostess says, oh my gosh. She says, this air has been blowing on me continually since we've been in here. And she says, I felt something break the air, and then I saw a huge wing. And then the next thing I know, Aaron that's the host, he's saying, oh my gosh, he says, I have this impression of a huge wing. And he could see, what the audience couldn't see was that the monitor was reflecting Michael in the monitor. And he could see that. And he felt Michael put his hand on his shoulder. And then at time index 30, 31, I think it is, or 30, something like that, you can hear the demonic scream as Michael wraps his wing around it and casts it back down. You can hear the scream in there. And after that show, I told him, I said, Michael said to tell you to listen carefully to, the audio on the show, because you're going to hear something. And couldn't have been more. He called me at like 2 a.m. and I'm like, what? He says, I just heard this horrible demonic scream. I'm like, yeah, told you Michael said that's what you would hear. You would hear something. And he says, I can't believe it. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, let me go back to sleep. But he asked me to join his paranormal team that night. And I'm like, okay, I guess so. That's what led me to join a paranormal team.
When you were first joining this paranormal team, did you have reservations that a lot of people have today with joining teams, because there seems to be so many different opinions on what is happening and what is supposed to go on in the paranormal? Or back then, was it a little bit easier because there wasn't maybe the drama and the tension that is associated with so many in this field?
Yeah, back then it wasn't like it is now. People got together for a common interest. And in this case, it was to help people who have paranormal issues or have issues in their home that they don't know what's causing it, and they just need either some validation or they need help with the issue, the problem, and they want to know that they're not crazy. Just the basic stuff. You take your cameras in, you take your recorders in, and then you have people like me who are mediums that will also go in, and you get the validation, and you sit down and do the evidence review, and you give the evidence to the people and say, you're not crazy, here it is right here. And then you help them solve that problem. It's not like so many of them go in and say, yep, this is what you got, and I got it on tape, goodbye. And I don't believe in that. It's like, okay, it's good to have the backup validation of the audio, the video, the still pictures, whatever. But you've got to help the people. Just to go in and say, oh yeah, this is, I got all this good, recording, and I got this and I got that. See you later. But you got to help the people. I mean, come on, they called you in because they're having problems and they need help with it. Sure, they need validation about it, but they also need you to, be able to help them with it or know somebody to help them with it. And you don't see a lot of that. You go around all the different ones. I think the only paranormal show that I ever remember seeing that they actually helped the people afterwards. They actually got them help, whether it be counseling or a priest or what have you, was Paranormal State.
Yes,
I mean,
and
the other one,
too bad that one turned out to be fake.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, because a lot of them really, if they would help people, that would be the main thing. Even your, dead files where it's like, she tells you, you need to get a shaman and you need this and you need that, and they'll be able to help you. Well, why doesn't she help? I don't understand. It's like I only diagnose it. I'm not going to help you with it.
That has been one of my biggest gripes about paranormal television as well, is the fact that there's nobody helping anybody. And in this field, when you're going into someone's house or place of business to confirm or deny that it's haunted isn't good enough in my books. Because if you're not there to solve a problem, they called you in there for a reason because they already know it's haunted, damn it. You know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
What's the point of going in there to confirm what the owner already knows? And what are you doing to help? It's ridiculous. I fully agree with you.
Most of them get into it because it's, they have these ideas of grandeur of having this huge show or having a television program or fame and fortune, and that's not what it's all about. You're supposed to get into it to help that person. I mean, when I broke off, I'm still a member of Northwest Paranormal, and I love it. I mean, it's great. But I started like a little side group called Ghosts and Girls Paranormal, and what it is we specialize in negatives. And we specialize in negative identification and removals. And, if somebody calls me and says, and which happens most of the time, I really need help and I need help now. And especially if it involves children or animals, it's like Wendy and I will go, we'll drop everything and we'll go as soon as possible. We don't, it's all about the person. It's not about you and, a week from Sunday it might be good. But we don't do that. You call us. If you're local and we can get to you, we're there. If it's something that's far away, and we're in another state or across the United States or something like that, if the person contacts me by email and sends me a picture, then a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, I can remove the negative from a distance. I've been doing that for years.
We're going to get more into the demonic side in hour number 2 because you are going to be with us for the entire night, June, and we really appreciate that. When you are dealing with spirit, how do you keep them from entering your home, or is your door a revolving door with spiritual activity?
No. My house and my land is very protected, and it helps that, Michael is with me all the time. So it's kind of a respect thing. If somebody needs help from the other, if a earthbound needs help and it's really urgent, then, Michael will let them, get to me and talk to me. And if it's not urgent, then they'll wait until I have time to help them. Because on the other side, time is skewed from here. It's different. But I don't have a revolving door here. I don't have ghosts here. I have angels, yes. I mean, angelics pass through all the time. It's real busy here for that. But not for earthbounds. I have a line of black salt that surrounds my property, which lets nothing negative in. And so I don't have any issues, and I draw the lines. I tell them, I'm just telling you right now, none of you can come in here unless I give you permission.
Sounds like you have a spirit in the background knocking at your door or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, the reason why I ask that is a lot of people ask point blank, how do you protect yourself? How do you make sure that you're not bringing home attachments from paranormal investigation, which is all too real for a lot of people? And it's funny because so many who are new to this or do not believe in it, or debunkers or people along those lines don't believe in any type of spiritual ritual or prayer or anything along those lines to protect themselves. So how do you protect yourself?
We always do a prayer. If I go into an investigation and I know there's a negative, and I always know before I go what's there. All I have to do is know where I'm going. I don't have to know anything else about it. Know that I'm going somewhere. I know that there's something negative there, and I will prepare for that by doing prayers and asking for protection. And as a group, we say, we do a prayer before we go in, before we leave, and we also clear ourselves by just stopping, closing your eyes, and filling yourself with the white light, and let it bubble over you and create a force field, and it will purge any of the negative that could be there and any attachments. You go in and you announce, nobody can follow me home. This is, where you stay if you're here. And I do not give permission for you to attach yourself to me or to anyone in my team, or to try to jump anyone in my team, because that's not allowed.
Do you sage? Do you use Palo Santo wood in order to cleanse yourself?
I don't use anything physical. I just use the white light of God and prayer. And really, when we start talking about protection, that's a whole nother situation. I don't know if you want to get into it right now, because there are certain things that you can do and certain things that protect you in the physical world, and certain things that won't. I wrote a book called The Dark Side of the Paranormal, and in it I talk about, the things that will protect you and the things that won't protect you in the physical world. A lot of people think, I'm going to lay down crystals, I'm going to use crystals, and they're going to keep away anything negative. Well, the only thing crystals do is amplify energy. It doesn't do anything to protect you. I'll give you an example. I was called in on a case where there was, where there was actually demonics there, and that's the reason they usually contact me, is because there's something negative that they cannot remove. And the people that went in told this guy, here, this will protect you. Put these crystals in all four corners of your home, and they'll protect you against the negative. And the guy went to bed that night, and this thing started pulling him out of bed and clawing at him. And when he finally went to sleep and got up next morning, all the crystals were broken in half. Crystals do not help you.
So in your terms, in your end, it's all about prayer in order to protect yourself and cleanse yourself from anything attaching to you before or after a ghost hunt or demonic intervention.
Yeah, there are certain things that will protect you in the physical world against negatives. One is the power of prayer, the invoking of Jesus Christ and God. If you wear a crucifix, now the crucifix must have an image of Jesus on it. And I don't mean an abstract image or rendering. I mean like, a statue, and lifelike statue on it. And this black salt that I make, which God gave me the recipe for to create, those are the three things I know for absolute certain that can be used in the physical world to keep a negative away and protect you.
We only got about a minute and a half before we have to go to our first break of the night. When you're investigating and you're with two different teams, are the styles different on the way both teams investigate?
Yeah, they don't vary that much, but if we're investigating with a different team, then they have their way of doing it. They use certain equipment, and we have our way of doing it. Some of them don't believe in mediums at all and don't think that they have any place in a paranormal investigation, and that it's really nothing. And so they base theirs solely on the scientific way, electronic stuff, and they don't use any mediums. Then that's a little bit of an issue sometimes with the group. That's why we usually, we'll talk to the other group ahead of time and find out, if they use any mediums or not, and if they have any problems with using mediums, that type of thing.
Yes, I have that issue with that. We can get into that very much in hour number 2. June Lundgren is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are going to be talking more about demons. We're going to get into it. Her book, Dark Side of the Paranormal, I highly suggest you Google it, check it out, pick it up. It'll be a good read for you. And we're going to be back with more SOR right after this.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Mike Morin is back joining me for Ghosts of the Great White North. We're going to be talking to a haunted tour group out of Toronto, Ontario. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us. We're also live on KTLK KFOK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bromidrosophobia. Or is it bromidrosophobia? Bromidrosophobia? I don't know. One of those ones. Bill sets a password each and every night. Bromidrosophobia. Let's try that one. Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR, so use it wisely, Space Travelers. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us for live chat, the SOR Space Travelers group. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. You can listen to us on our brand new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio, no longer Spaced Out Radio Show. We're moving all the archives over. And you can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can rock away to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, watch great videos from UFO seekers and Contact TV, as well read The Encounter online. We got some great stories there for you to catch up on your paranormal and strange and weird news, and everything more at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with paranormal investigator and author June Lundgren. Her book is Dark Side of the Paranormal. June, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you so much, and we're enjoying you. So let's start off right off the bat with a couple of questions from our audience. And I got a couple from Gail. She says, how is it that Archangel Michael can be with you all the time and others say he is with them?
You're thinking like a human, like a mortal. When they can actually be several different places at the same time. I learned when I died in a motorcycle accident in 1988 that on the other side, thought becomes reality. So if you think China, you're there. It's one giant place. There's no walls. There's no time. So he can be everywhere at the same time. It's like having a party line. He can listen to everybody.
Kind of like being omnipotent. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Let's get to Gail's second question. Who do you pray to when you are going through your prayer in order to protect yourself?
I ask for Jesus and God's protection.
So are you a religious person, or are you just a strong believer spiritually?
Well, I think it would have to be like spiritual, because religion is a man-made thing. So I guess it's just spiritual. A lot of people believe in a higher power, but they don't always give it a name. With me, I was raised Pentecostal, so it's like I believe in God and Jesus and the archangels, and of course, the other side too, the devil. I mean, you can't have one without the other. It's a balancing act.
Everett is asking, you mentioned that you need to wear a crucifix with Jesus's figure on for protection. But what if you're Jewish or, say, Muslim?
Then it's all, like I said, 99.9% of it is all about thought and intent. If you believe, absolutely, if you're, the Star of David, if you wear that, then that's your representation of God. And so I imagine it would work the same way. I have the leader of my other group called the Northwest Paranormal. He's an ordained minister, and he was raised Jewish, but he's non-denominational now, and So I think it's all about the strong faith. Faith and prayer carries a lot of weight on the other side.
Joyce has a question that we want to get to, and she is asking, do dark entities subscribe to Christian teachings, limits, or rules?
They have their own rules and their own boundaries and limitations, but they do have a respect for one another. Lucifer has a respect for God and Jesus, as well, in the way that they are the hierarchy, but he also has a healthy respect for, like, Michael, the archangels, Michael, Ariel, Gabriel, but it's a warrior's respect more than anything. It would be like two people in battle, the old days when the knights, saluted each other, or the pair of fencers fencing off, that type of thing.
In our Spreaker chat room, Chris is asking, June, can you immediately tell the first time you meet someone if they have a gift?
Yeah, usually it'll stick out. I can tell if they have what they have, and what, even if they haven't tapped into their abilities, I can usually sense whether they're a sensitive, whether they're medium, and is it a physical medium, or usually I can tell.
So when you're looking at someone and you connect with them, is it a feeling that you get, like a vibe that they're intuitive or they're empathic? Explain that to us a little bit more in detail.
People have what my grandmother called, and what some people refer to as, the knowing. You know it, and you don't know how you know it, but you're absolutely sure of something. And that's the way it is when I meet someone and I know that they have either they're sensitive or they're a psychic medium, whether they're an empath, that sort of thing. It's just, for me, it's a case of knowing. I just know that they have it. The person may not know it themselves, or may have a sense of, I kind of like know when something's going to happen, or I feel what other people feel, if somebody's sad, I feel that, that type of thing. And I like to help people to help themselves by bringing out their abilities. I'm actually mentoring 4 people right now. 2 of them are in England, and actually 3 of them are in England, and 1 of them is here. And I mentor them by helping them bring out their abilities and become comfortable with their abilities and learn how to use them.
Do you like working with people who are just getting in touch with their own intuition?
Yes, I wrote my first book, A Medium's Guide to the Paranormal, because I believe that people need to be empowered to be able to connect with the other side, their guides, their guardians, to help guide them to where they need to be. They shouldn't have to come to somebody like me to say, should I take this job? Should I trust this guy? Should I get married? Whatever. I believe in empowering people to be able to do these things themselves. I'm all for that. I mean, as much as I love working with people, and doing readings and stuff, I really enjoy helping people empower themselves.
Let's get to Milo's question here. He is asking, how can you sense how strong that gift is on a person?
I can usually tell one or 2 ways. Either they have a sense of their own gift and are just starting out, or they're already confident in their abilities and they don't need any help. Usually, if a person is just starting out, they're very tentative with it, and I guess the best way to describe it is when I look at them, I see a door, and the door is, for me, is a symbol of their abilities, their awakening to their abilities. And sometimes it's flung wide open, and I'm like, oh, great. They have abilities, they're comfortable with them, they're utilizing them. And then you get other ones where the doors only open a little crack. And that tells me that they may not be fully aware of their abilities. And if they are, they're very unsure of them and unsure of how to work with them.
I want to shift gears here to get more into the darker side of the paranormal. Take us back when you first learned that dealing with spirits wasn't all happy and joyous.
It's kind of hard to define one particular moment because ever since I can remember, I've always known if there was a negative entity present. I've always known that if I went somewhere, I always knew there was if there was negative entity present, and I knew whether it was an earthbound spirit that was negative or whether it was a demonic. And as I grew older, I learned to tell the difference between, there are three main types of demonics. There are what I call the old ones, which are, I liken to archangels, they're equivalent. And then there are the lesser demons, who are the ones you're more likely to find in the physical world causing problems. And then there are what I call the minions. And no, I'm not talking about the little yellow guys. These guys are like shadow people, creepy crawly things that crawl up the ceiling and walls and stuff like that, and like to look like spiders and all kinds of weird things. So, as I grew older, I learned to differentiate between them. You rarely see an old demon in the physical world, but it does happen occasionally. And when it does, it's not a good thing because they're very, very powerful.
We had Susan Fowler on last night from shadowpeople.org breaking down shadow people. Do you believe that all shadow people are of a negative background?
Well, let's put it this way. In 50 years of doing this, I've only ever come across negative shadow people. True shadow people, let's put it that way, because, you can get a ghost that will show himself as a 6-foot-tall shadow person. And it's really not a shadow person. It's actually this short, fat, balding guy who never got any respect in life and is damned if he's going to, not get any respect in death. So he shows himself as this huge shadow person, I'm big, I'm bad, I'm ugly, when he really isn't. But the one thing people fail to understand about dealing with negatives is they can make you perceive them as they wish to be perceived. If they want to be seen as, a ugly thing with a half dragon, half goat, or half spider, half man, or half, have horns or whatever, they can make you see them that way. What they do is they go inside your head and they find the thing that you fear the most, what your image would be of the devil. And so they build on that and make it even scarier, so that when they show themselves, this is what the person sees. This is not really what they look like, but they're showing themselves as that to you inside your brain, that they make you see them as that. I see them as they truly are, which are, like the demons, the lessers and the old ones are like, they look exactly like a black angel. The only difference is their face and eyes. Face and eyes are horrible to look at. They're yellow eyes, and some have red eyes, and they're just, it's just to look the most ugliest looking thing you could ever imagine. Their face, but the rest of them is beautiful. The rest of them is beautiful.
I want to get to Tessa's question here in the Spreaker chat room. She is asking, she says she has seen the devil and his little minions known to her as kobolds. Do you know what kobolds are? They remind her of gremlins in their stature.
Yeah, they're funky little creepy things. She may call them a kobold. I just call them minions. They're creepy, crawly things. They can slink across the walls and ceilings, and really they're more of a pain in the rear than anything. They like to cause problems, stir up trouble in relationships and health issues, and they like to scare kids. And it's all about, for them, it's kind of like a fly. You know how pesky flies are. Well, these guys are gadfly. That's what they remind me of, because they just like to cause problems. They are not big, mean, and ugly, but they can still cause, relationship problems and financial problems and things like that.
How does one know if they have these attached to them? Because, having relationship problems or financial problems are a daily battle for a lot of people.
It's not just that, though. If you have an attachment to you that's negative, your health starts declining suddenly. Your life goes to hell in a handbasket. You have, you have relationship problems where there shouldn't be any. You wake up one morning and you want to kill your spouse, and they've done absolutely nothing for no reason. They haven't done anything, but you suddenly hate them, and this type of obsessive stuff. And like I said, you have health problems, relationships, your jobs. People don't want to be around you. It seems like you have a black cloud hanging over you because everything seems to go wrong in your life, and you have problems sleeping, you have nightmares, you have no energy. All these things are connected to them.
So would a person know in their daily basis if they have that type of negative attachment?
A lot of people don't. A lot of people think, oh man, it's I'm a jinx, or I'm just having a streak of bad luck. Or I ran into a woman when my first book came out. I was in Vegas doing a lecture on my book. And I was also doing healings and doing readings, and I was doing these for like 6 days in a row, and I sat down during a break, and I said, do we have anybody coming next? Is there somebody? And my host just says, no, this is our lunch hour. You have an hour and a half off. You're just gonna sit and relax. I said, no. I said, there's somebody coming, and they've got a demon attached to them. I said, and the next thing, you hear the doorbell ring. And I told my hostess, go ahead, just go to the door and answer it. So she goes to the door, and there's this woman standing outside. And she says, oh, thank you. I've been trying for 3 days to get through on your phone. Your phone's always busy. And we look at each other, and it's like, the phone's not busy. Nobody's, it's busy, but it's not like busy all the time. And I told her, I said, just let her come in. I said, she needs to come in. I need to see her now. So I took her in the other room, and we sat down. And I said, well, how long have you had this demonic attachment? And she's like, what? You're telling me? I've always felt like I had this black cloud looming over my head. She said, is that what it is? And I'm like, yeah. I said, because I can see it standing outside having a hissy fit because it can't get in. I had my hostess put a line of black salt around her house. And she says, well, I said, did you have like a near-death experience? And she said, when I was 5, my parents were killed in a car accident, and I was in the back seat. I survived, but they didn't. And after that, it seemed like everything, started happening that was bad. I said, that's because you brought something back with you. I said, you brought back a negative. And once the removal was done, it's like, she seemed like a whole different person. And I heard from her, shortly after that saying that everything was so much better. Her health had improved. Her finances had improved. And she was off to visit Europe. And so people, they don't always know. They think they have a streak of bad luck or they're cursed or something. And it's like, that's not what it is. Wake up.
Well, I'm sure there are many of us who are going to be calling you now saying, why the hell is my bank account so empty?
I wish.
So in your opinion then, what is a demon?
A demon is an entity that has, I have to be clear about this. The demon we all had physical bodies before we came to this planet. There was another planet that we inhabited. We all had physical bodies at that time, and we evolved into pure energy. And once everyone had evolved into pure energy, we traveled the stars and the galaxies, seeing everything there was to see. And we did that for, thousands of years. And then one day we got tired and said, you know what? We'd like to have children again. We'd like to have a physical body to have, to be able to have children and to love and even to grow old. And there grew a division between the souls. And people were saying, we don't want to have anything to do with that. We don't want to hurt. We don't want to grow old. We don't want to be subject to a shell, just stuck in a shell. And the other half said, no, that's what we want. We want to have physical bodies again. And so that's what the quote-unquote, the war between heaven and hell was all about. And in that war, what ended it was Michael disarmed Lucifer and Ariel disarmed his son. And God told him, I'm going to give you exactly what you want. You will never be able to have a physical body. And they're like, we're good with that. Yeah, we're cool because we never wanted to have one in the first place. But I'm going to relegate you to the darkness. But they were okay with that at the time. But over years, millennia of anger and resentment building up and everything. So then they are what we call demons. They have, taken it upon themselves to cause as much havoc and as much pain and suffering as they possibly can in the physical world. So a demonic is an entity that has never had a physical body in this planet.
So with demons, do you believe then that they are warriors from the depths of hell and the spawn of Satan who come out to destroy what is supposed to be good about life?
Well, they seek payback, basically. They're mad because, they've been relegated to the darkness and they've been given, all the bad, everybody's vilified them and everything, and they're going to truly live up to what it is. And they truly do have a hate for the living, really, and the white souls that inhabit the living. But it's not to say that they can't change. because, there have been very few, but there have been some that have changed and went back to the light. Azrael is an archangel that dwells in the darkness there. To him, and I think there's 12 of them down there, 12 others that wait for, any dark one that wants to repent and to go back into the light. And like I said, he's only had maybe a handful in all the millennia he's been in the darkness. But he volunteered to be there to give them a second chance, to say, you want to come home, you want to change, I'll help you. And of course, he would know whether they truly meant it or not. And so he keeps watch for anyone that would like to go home.
So how prevalent then are demons on this planet?
Unfortunately, there's a lot more now than there used to be. When I started doing this 20-some years ago, they weren't that prevalent, but as society changed and as people became more self-centered, and they seem to have become more prevalent. They have other ways in which to cause problems. And plus, the word spreads, like the internet, people are now more aware than ever of the issues with the dark ones, and that they do exist, and that they are out there, and what the signs and symptoms, so to speak, are of, them being around you, attached to you, any of the above. And so I don't know whether I know it's a case of people being more aware of them, but it's also increase in, right now the light is spreading. It's been started, God said to me, in September, end of August 2013, said, the light's going to start spreading. He says, you're going to see more, because the light is spreading, the darkness is pushing back. So you're going to see more paranormal activity, more violence, more mental illness, more depression in people. And sure enough, right after that was when that school shooting happened in Connecticut, and things have been going pretty much not so good, because the light is spreading and the darkness is trying to push back and cause problems and keep the light from spreading.
Chris has a question. She is asking, can a demon reflect in a mirror?
Yeah. It can. It's like, you can see its reflection behind you. You can see it in a pool of water. Anything that's reflective, you can see it. Most of the time you don't, but it can show itself in the reflection of a glass, in water, in a mirror, picture, a computer screen.
So it's not like a vampire at all that way.
Right. No. They make themselves seen as a reflection. If you were to take a picture, you probably wouldn't see it, but they look into your mind and they put that picture into your mind that they're standing behind you. As a big black ugly thing. It's about to get you.
Let's get to another question here. This one comes from BTO. Do you solely rely on externalization with regards to receiving guidance from archangels and outside forces, or do you usually go deep within yourself and rely on your own soul for guidance?
It's kind of kind of ironic about that. To answer that question, I have to tell you what happened to me in 1988. I was in a motorcycle accident in 1988. I had repoed a bike, and I was on my way to my husband's house, which would be my husband's house, my future husband's house. And I was taking a turn, and a woman ran a red light and hit me on my bike. And so I was clinically dead for 2 minutes. Fortunately, there was a police officer that saw the accident. He was a few cars back. And so he tried to revive me, but couldn't. But during that time, I crossed into the other side. My grandmother was waiting, and my grandfather, and Michael was there. And my grandpa said, you're not supposed to be here. It's not your time. And then Michael stepped forward and said, you're here because you need to understand what and who you are. And I'm like, yeah, I'm me. And he's like, you're still thinking as you would be in the physical world. So what he did was he made me relive every life, physical world life that I've ever lived, back to the core soul. Each person has a soul name, and each person, has an individual soul. So mine, he says, this is who you are. This is who your soul belongs to. And I'm like, no, that can't be. And he's like, this is who your soul belongs to. He said, you are Ariel, guardian, archangel and guardian of the throne of God. I said, but archangels never come back. And he says, they do. He said, there are 8 of them in the world at this moment. And they're sent back either to learn a lesson or to help mankind, or a mission for God, an assignment for God. And he says, yours was because you needed to learn a lesson. He said, Ariel had become hard and cold. She had forgotten how to have compassion for man and how to love mankind. She had been up there so long that she didn't care. And Michael showed me a video of Ariel pulling a demon out of a woman's physical body, and then the woman died. And he said that was the last straw. He said God wouldn't tolerate, your compassionless way with man. And so he sent Ariel back to relive lives until she learned to have compassion for man. And he said that's why you always know where the negatives are, why you've always been able to tell where they are and what they are. So the soul recognizes everybody has a soul, and mine just is a little bit different in the way that because she's inside me, it makes it very, very easy to remove a demon. I mean, it's just like nothing. And when I go into it, I don't have any fear or doubt about what I'm doing. Because over the years, that was 28 years ago when that happened. It took me a while to come to terms with what was inside me. And then Michael, the archangel, helped me to learn to control her and to bring her only forward when I had to do a removal. So, I depend upon my soul and Michael to help me with things. And because my soul belongs to Ariel, it's much stronger than a lot of the other people, that what's people call demonologists. Nobody in their right mind wants to be a demonologist because it takes a toll on you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And most people that do this sort of work die young and have a lot of health issues. And because of what's inside me, I don't have health issues or, I just turned 59. And so I don't have that sort of challenge in the physical world. So I would say I depend upon Ariel, my soul, to know what and where. And also Michael validates things for me. He's like, yes, this is what's going on. This is how many are here. And, I don't care how long you've been doing this, you need validation. And Michael is kind of like my sounding board. Since he's with me all the time, it's, that's how I do it.
Let's get to a follow-up question from BTO here. He's asking, so are you just focused on light, or have you realized for yourself that you've been dark as well at times within this universe?
Well, if you count the darkness in the way, if you would call not having compassion for man, not caring about man, as from my soul point of view, as darkness, then yeah, she had darkness. All she cared about was killing demons, and she loved to kill demons, and she loved to send them back she would rather kill them than send them back. So I guess, like anything, there's good and bad in everything. And I try to focus on the light in one way, because she is good. She does mean well, and she is trying to help mankind. But I also know that there's a darker side to her, in that she wants to kill the demons and doesn't care about anything but killing the demons. So, it's a double-edged sword, and you have to learn to control her, because you can't let her control you, because she has attitude with a capital A.
So, when you... sounds like my son just dropped something above the studio there. It's paranormal activity from SOR Jr. So let's get to Tessa's question here. She says, recently someone told her that Lucifer saw his evil ways and repented. Now he is known as Luther. She finds this BS, as the epic battle never happened. What are your thoughts?
Well, Lucifer is still himself. I mean, I encountered him last weekend, actually. And I had to do a removal, and suffice to say, the last entity that had to be removed was one that Lucifer himself had been looking for. It was an entity that did not complete an assignment which he was given by Lucifer, and refused. I gave it a chance to go to the light, and it refused. And so I asked Lucifer to take the entity, and I was with two other people. One was a minister, the other one was my partner, and they both saw him, the shape, the physical shape, black shape of him coming down the hallway to remove the negative that he had been looking for. And so I know he still exists. And no, he hasn't repented, but there is a hierarchy, and there is a respect between Lucifer and God, Jesus, and the archangels. There is that system of respect.
For so many years, I thought it was only the Catholic priests who were ordained to do it that could remove demons from mankind. How can a mere mortal such as yourself have that ability?
Well, what? Think about it. Stop and think about it. Why does it take a Catholic priest? Because I asked Michael myself. I said, why does it take a Catholic priest, weeks, months, even years to actually cast out a demon? And Michael looked at me and said, doubt. he said, really, they have doubt. If you have any doubt, whether it be in your own abilities, whether, a lot of them were like, can I do this? I hope I can do this. If they have any doubt in themselves, in their ability to do it, or in the Lord, or whatever you want to call it, Jehovah, whatever, then they, it takes them so long to do it. They have that doubt. And I told Michael, I said, well, I don't understand that, because when I go into a situation and there's a demonic there, I said, I have no doubt. I have no fear. They also have fear, he said. You can't have fear because these things know it. And they'll find your weaknesses, they'll find your fears, they'll find your doubts, and they'll work them. And forget it. You're never going to get rid of them at this rate. It takes them so long because they have these doubts, these fears. And you can't have anything in dealing with these. And the difference is, I have an archangel inside me. That's the difference. If I didn't have, I would be just the same as the rest of them. I would, I'm sure, have doubts. But when I face these things and she comes forward, then I have no fears. And people tell me that my whole body, my whole face and eyes change, that they, my eyes turn white, and that I have like light shining out of them, and that my face looks different, completely different when she's out. Of course, I don't know, because I don't have a mirror. I don't care.
Jer Bear is asking in the Revolution Radio chat room, June, could you see angels' faces? Like the angels, did they look like anybody you knew?
It's hard to say. I've known Michael all my life, so for me, when I see an angel, I see the individual faces, and none of them are anybody that I know in the physical world, not in this lifetime anyway. Except for, of course, God and Jesus. But, Michael's been with me forever. So I see him. He's 7 feet tall, 12-foot wingspan. And he has curly brown hair and green eyes.
A lot of people would say that looks almost alien with some of the alien races that are out there.
Nah, he says he takes exception to that. He doesn't like those aliens at all.
Let's get to Milo's question. He is asking, how common are actual demons versus people encountering negative spirit?
Huh? Run that by me again.
How common are demons comparatively to people who are just encountering a pissed-off spirit?
Oh, okay. So you're talking about a pissed-off spirit is just an earthbound. That's somebody that's had, nasty in life and nasty in death. They're nothing compared to, they're easy to get rid of compared to a demonic. You can sage the heck out of your house. You can light white candles. You can do a house clearing, and the demon just sits back and laughs. Now, if it was an earthbound, they would be gone. But demonics, none of that works. It just pisses them off.
The paranormal field over the last couple of years, it goes in stages, and I laugh because I know a number of people in this field, and we all just kind of cringe and shake our heads when you see somebody who's like 22, 23 years old, been in the paranormal scene for like 18 months and calling themselves a demonologist. Whereas you've been doing this almost your entire life. Priests have been doing this and doing deliverances, in very religious sects. The word demonology was getting thrown around quite a bit in the paranormal field. What's your opinion of that?
I don't like the word demonologist. I have met so many people that are fakes. It's incredible to me. And I don't call myself a demonologist. My grandmother, who's been dead since 1979, said, you know what, you need to call yourself what we call you in the old country, in Ireland, a demon seer. A demon seer is somebody that can see them, talk to them, communicate with them, understand them, and get rid of them. So that's why I don't call myself a demonologist. I call myself a demon seer because, it doesn't have the negative connotations that demonologist has. I just don't like it, and I've run into too many fake ones. I just want to slap those guys upside the head.
Do you think it was because it was the popular thing to do, because all of the television shows suddenly were dealing with demons left, right, and center? Somebody farted in the background and it was a demon kind of thing?
Yeah, and I love these ones that are start out on a show and that Paranormal Lockdown. Katrina started out on Paranormal State, and she calls herself an expert, and paranormal expert. Okay. It's like being an expert in, a occult specialist, or somebody that can tell you, oh, well, a demon is this, or it has this many names and goes by this name in this country and that name in that country, but they've never really encountered one, never really went face to face with one of these things. And I feel like telling them, honey, come on, you come with me and you'll encounter one. I don't think they're going to take me up on that offer.
So why do you think all of a sudden, let's say in the last 5-6 months, all of a sudden we've seen a regression of people saying they're a certified or a specialized demonologist?
I don't know. I don't know where they got it from, because it's not something that you quote unquote learn to do. I have had people come to me and say, I want to learn to do what you do. And I tell them, I said, no, you don't. I said, you either have the calling for it. I didn't pick this out. God said to me one day, I can talk to him, like I talk to you. And what I told him, he says, I want you to start removing demons. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you couldn't give me, something airy-fairy, some light thing. You got to give me negatives. And he says, listen, you've done it in all your lifetimes, and you're good at it. And you're going to do it in this lifetime, too. This is what I want you to do for me. And I'm like, but how do I go about it? I don't understand. And I had doubts. I'm a person. I got doubts. I'm like, Michael and I had long conversations, and I'm like, I have a physical body now. Even though Ariel may be inside me, they can do harm to me. And I said, they can kill me. And he's like, yeah, but he said, just think about it for a minute, logically. If they kill the body, Ariel comes out, and they're screwed, because she will kill them for killing the body. So really, they fear Ariel, so you don't worry about it. And he says, besides, I got your back. I'm like, okay, but it still took me a couple of years to come to terms with it. And it's not like something you can learn. the first time that she came out fully, I got a call from my sister-in-law. She said, "Hey, there's something wrong with your brother." My sister-in-law's aunt was Sybil Leek. She was in the 70s. She was a big psychic medium, famous. And she says his eyes turn black, and he looks at me like he wants to kill me. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went, they live in Salem, so I went down there, and I told her, I said, I'm going to go to the store, give me a call when he comes home, and I'll come over. So my phone rang, and I drove back to his place, and I stood outside, and Michael says, I want you to just stand outside, and I want you to call the demon to you. I'm like, thinking to myself, are you out of your mind? And Michael's like, no, I'm not. He said, just do it. So I'm like, okay. So I cleared my mind, and I said, demon, I command you to come forth. And here comes this mass through the wall, and it's heading towards me. And I'm like, holy shoot, and it's getting closer and closer, and it's calling me everything but a white woman. And I'm like, it's speaking in a language that I don't even know what it is. I don't understand it, but yet I do understand it. I know what it's saying. And then it must have been about 5 feet away from me. And then suddenly Ariel comes forward, and she's telling it, don't you know who I am? And it's like freaking out because, no, you can't be in the physical world. And he's like, yeah, it's me. And she grabbed it by the throat and just cast it down. And then she went back inside. My consciousness returned.
I'm going to get you to hold on. You finish that story when we come back from the break, because that's going to be a great story indeed. Author and paranormal researcher June Lundgren is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. She is going the distance, going to be with us one more hour here on the mighty SOR as we are talking demons, demonology. She doesn't like demonologists, so we'll call her a demon seer as she cleanses the evil from people's lives. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday night. Tomorrow night on the program, Ghosts of the Great White North is back with Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada. We are going to be talking to a group out of Toronto that does ghost tours. So it's going to be a great night indeed, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe.fm, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Bromidrossophobia. Bromidrossophobia is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us for live chat on Facebook in the SOR Space Travelers group. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. We have a brand new YouTube channel called Spaced Out Radio. We're moving our archives. It's no longer Spaced Out Radio Show, so we ask that you move on over. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Watch videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and you can also read our news section put together by our editor Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham. There we go. And we got some great stories there indeed. Tonight we are talking with June Lundgren. She is a paranormal author. She is a demon seer, paranormal investigator. Her life revolves around ghosts and demons. Welcome back, June. Appreciate you coming the distance with us.
I love being here tonight. Love talking to you all.
Now, right before the break, you were filling us in on a story. I'd love for you to continue.
I was talking about the first time that Ariel was brought out, that I ever used her, and she had just sent the demon down, and then she receded into the back of my consciousness, and I looked at Michael and I said, "You did this. You used me as bait." And he's like, "Yeah, I did." I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you had to understand what was inside you and how it works, and that she would come out, in the face of a negative." I'm like, "You couldn't have just told me that?" And he's like, "No, it's something that you had to experience." And so then he started teaching me how to keep her from coming out unless she was actually needed. It's because she has such bad attitude when it comes to people. She's not very diplomatic, and I used to tell people when I first started going and removing demons, I would sit them down and say, "Listen, okay, when she comes out, she has attitude. Can't do anything about that. That's her. So whatever she says, it's not me. So just know that, she removes the demons, and I can't do anything about her attitude right now." But that was the first time, and that was a long time ago, 20-some years ago. And I've learned to control her and bring her out, since then.
Do the angels of God that you deal with have attitudes as well? Or or is it just confidence?
They have, some of them have attitude. It just depends, some of them have attitude, but all of them have a really good sense of humor. Ezekiel's got a little dry sense of humor, but for the most part, they all have really good sense of humor. And they do have a lot, they're confident, obviously, but they have a little bit of attitude. But I guess you'd have to have a little bit of attitude when you're an archangel and you have to deal with these things. I don't see how you wouldn't have attitude.
Well, many would say that it's not so much attitude as it is confidence, because they get it. They understand what is out there, and we as humans cannot comprehend. Would you agree with that?
In certain ways. Like I said, they're very confident, but they have a tiny little bit of attitude, Ariel had big attitude, but that's because she'd been up there too long, and all she did was basically remove demons and guard the throne. I mean, of God. It's like, if that's all you did 24/7 and you loved to kill demons, you'd have attitude too. But, the others have more compassion for mankind than she did. But, you've been up there thousands of years and that's all you did. I can understand having, an attitude and seeing what humans do. It's like Michael says, I can understand her attitude in one way because you see mankind and they'll they'll invite these demonics into their world, and the way they treat each other and their disregard. Some of them have a horrible disregard for life, and the more I see of animal abuse, the more I think he's right in that way. And I really hate animal abuse. I'm an animal communicator as well, and that really, really bothers me.
Do animals get demonic attachments?
No, they don't get attachments. They get, they can be killed by a demonic. They can be tortured by a demonic. I went in on a case last April where 2 of the pets had been killed by the demon that was there, and the other 2 were under attack. So they don't get attachments like that. It's kind of like when they cross over, when they die. Rarely do they linger because they don't have the baggage we have, and they're closer to God. They're simpler souls, and they're closer to God. And like I said, they don't have our baggage.
What about the hounds from hell?
No such things. They're not really hounds. They're minions posing as dogs or hounds of hell. They're not really animals.
What about snakes? Nobody likes snakes.
Yeah. I hate spiders even worse. I'm not much on snakes, but I can tolerate them, but spiders I really hate. No, snakes are just that. They're there to eat the bugs and stuff like that. There's nothing demonic about them. I mean, of course, we symbolized them as Satan in the Bible, but only because, they could kill you with their cobra, venom and stuff.
Let's get to Char's question, who is asking, June, can you tell what's in a house without actually going there? Like, say, if you were on the phone with a client?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I make the connection. The thing is, it's like if I get a picture or an email, or with the email, I can usually tell if something's negative is there. With a picture, it gives me a clearer connection with the individual and what they've been going through, and I can tell what kind. I can tell what kind it is, whether it's earthbound or whether it's a actual demonic presence. But when I talk to the person, I can always tell what it is there. What it is, whether it's a minion, lesser demon, old demon, anything. It's just, I make that connection, that instant connection.
Many people have stated in the paranormal that I have dealt with that over their years, and I'm talking people who have, been investigating 20, 30 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that they have, numerous of them say that they have never run into anything demonic, or maybe had one, maybe two cases of demon possession. If that is the case, and yet you're saying there are literally demons everywhere, how come so many people who've been investigating almost as long as you have not run into as many as you?
A lot of that is because, the thing with me is when I had this, God gave me this, He said, this is what you're going to be doing. This is your assignment. And I'm like, okay, but, how am I going to know? How am I going to help these people, find these people to help these people? And He said that I will send them to you. I will send them to you by word of mouth. And basically, for years, I never advertised that that's what I do. I kind of kept it quiet. But people always found out by word of mouth. And, that's the thing. It's word of mouth. People know, and God sends them to me, and I help them. I mean, I know people that's never even run into a negative. I was on a radio show with somebody, and he says, I don't believe in negatives. I've never encountered one in my life. And I'm like, wow, that must be nice. It's like, I told Michael, I said, what's with that? Afterwards. And Michael says, it's because he couldn't handle them. Some people are not meant to encounter them because they cannot handle them. They could not handle the, dealing with them at all. They don't have the abilities, or couldn't take it, emotionally, mentally, whatever. Some people run into them and have dealing with them, and they're never the same. I mean, it ruins their lives. Even if they beat it, they're never the same. And some people are meant to encounter them, and others, like you say, they've been doing this for years and never run into them. And I wish I could say, I've been doing this for years and never run into them. But that's not the way it was meant for me. That's not their job. This is my job.
Do you think many people who are investigating the paranormal are naive about the demonic actions that are actually out there?
I think they really are, or it's kind of like some teenagers, think, it'll never happen to me. I'll never get an attachment. I'll never run into a negative. Or they're like, I hope I never run into a negative. I knew somebody who was like, that was been an investigator for years, and he's like, I don't want to run into them. I don't want to have anything to do with them. If there's even a remote chance, I'm not taking the job to do the investigation. He said, because I just can't deal with it. And I'm like, okay. I mean, that's your choice. I mean, I don't fault him for that. I mean, nobody in their right mind wants to have to deal with these things. But sometimes you have to do it because I do it because I serve God, not because I want to do it. And I've come across so many ones that say they're demonologists or whatever, and they take money from people. I don't do that. I don't take money from people. This is a service for God. You don't get paid for a service for God. All I ask the people is that they pass on, the good deed and do something nice for somebody who needs help. That's all I ask, for payment.
BTO's question is, do you know of the Anunnaki, and do you believe there is any correlation between God and his sons and Lil and Enki, who are depicted as Jesus and Lucifer?
Any connection? I guess we're all interconnected. Lucifer has a son, Jesus has a son, but the trouble is they're all interconnected. I mean, if you're a light being, you are always connected to what some people call the God consciousness, the greater consciousness. And if you're a dark being, you're always connected to, Lucifer. So really, they're interwoven. You can't have the good without the bad. I wish you could.
Shar is asking, so do you then believe that, from what you've learned from the archangels in your discussions, that all extraterrestrials are demons?
No, I'm not saying they're demons. I'm saying they don't like them. They don't like their interference in our world. They don't like them, being here at all. And that's not what they want. They really just do not like them and their interference in mankind.
What about children? How are children susceptible to the evil ways?
Children are open, like animals, they're open to the other side. So they, until they reach like 10, 12 years old, it's simple for them. They're open. They'll see the other side. They'll see negatives. They'll see angels. They'll see earthbound spirits because they don't know any better. They don't know that they're quote unquote not supposed to see this person, or their imaginary friend is an angel, or their imaginary friend is a demonic that's in the guise of a child. So, but once they reach that 11, 12-year-old, then they realize that they're not supposed to be seeing these things. They don't really exist. There's no such thing as ghosts. There's no such thing as imaginary friends. And they should, but they're vulnerable, like old people are vulnerable to these entities. And these entities try to work their way into their good graces and influence them.
So with children, do you think demons then maybe go along the lines of, showing up as something cute and cuddly, like a puppy dog or a kitten or something along those lines?
They'll usually show up as another child. At first they'll be like, let's play games, and they'll get their confidence. Once they get their confidence, then it starts gradually changing to something a little darker, having them do things they're not supposed to do, and then they start scaring them, which really freaks out the kid, and then they're afraid of them once they show their true colors. But they still usually don't show themselves as the full-fledged demon. They usually will just keep in the guise of a child, but they'll still be a mean child or nasty child, or my friend scares me now, and then the child will try to get the adult to pay attention.
Let's get to a question from Debbie. She is asking, I've heard that demons don't leave the bowels of hell for just anything. Do you agree with this statement?
Only the old ones. The old ones are like what I call the old ones. They are like, we're not worth their time and energy to come up here and bother with. They have better things to do with their time, basically, than to deal with us. I've run into a couple of them, a couple of really nasty ones. But I've always, there have been, if you've ever heard of places where people will say, oh, the land is no good. The land is cursed. There's been a lot of, death on this land. Bad things happen on this land. So it's, nobody should live there type of thing. And there's a place down in Arizona that a prison sits on one like that. And I've always wondered, I wonder why the land is like that. And then a couple years ago, I found out I was called in on a situation where, this paranormal group couldn't deal with it because it was a demonic. And then I went up there and with, Aaron, the minister, and his wife. And, the minute you roll up, it's like, really? Come on. there's an old demon here, and it's like, so my first priority was to remove the old demon. When I go in and it's that prevalent, if there's a negative that prevalent, Ariel has a tendency to try to come out ahead of time, so I have to keep her back in line and talk to the people and let them know, who I am and what I am, and for a lot of times, first thing out of their mouth is, are you Christian based? And I'm like, yes, I am, because a lot of them don't want anybody that's not, Christian based, and I'm like, I am Christian based. So when I'm there, I know exactly where the thing is and what I need to do. So I knew that it was upstairs in one of the bedrooms. And so I'm leading the way to go up the stairs. And the two other people that were with me were behind. And this thing tried to push the woman down the stairs. And then it tried to squeeze, Aaron's heart. And, it felt like he was having tremendous chest pain. And it tried to push me, and it's like, of course, it wasn't allowed to. But we got it cornered in one room, and then Ariel came forward, and then Michael and Gabriel also joined in the fun, so to speak. They had a hold of this thing on each side, and I told it, I said, I want to know why you're here. Why are you entombed in the ground? And it wasn't going to tell me. And I told him, I said, I command you to tell me. And so it said that it was entombed in the ground because it had gone against Lucifer. They wanted him to do something. Lucifer wanted it to do something, and it said no, it didn't want to do it, wasn't going to do it. And so Lucifer entombed it in the ground, and for as long as, he deemed it to remain there. And but man had been started building on the site, tearing up the site, and this thing was able to come out, but it knew better than to leave because that would draw attention to it, and then Lucifer would know it was out and about. And so that's why you find places like that. Every place that you find that's like that has this, bad history, all this bad stuff happening on it, there's usually a demonic buried, entombed below it. And people think, well, if it's entombed, then it shouldn't be able to have any kind of influence anywhere else. But that's not true. These things have influence, for miles around. If they're buried in the ground, if they're bound to something, they still have far-reaching influence, and they can cause problems. The people that lived in this house, the wife had never had any health problems. The minute they moved into the house, she was diagnosed with cancer. It ended up being terminal cancer. She was dead in 2 years. And the husband, started having problems too, and it was pulling him out of the bed and scratching him and all kinds of things. And so once the demonic was removed, then the guy's wife's spirit, who died in the house there, was released. And there were a couple others that were able to cross. And I went outside and I said, you have the perfect storm here. You have the old demonic, and you've got a portal over here, and then it was like a tool shed that was a portal. And I told him, I said, come and stick your hand on this and feel the vibration. And him and the other people I brought with me, they laid their hands on it, and they're like, oh my God, it's vibrating. I'm like, yeah, there's a portal inside it. And so once I closed that, then there was like an elemental little gnome type guy, and he was only there because he was curious to what was going on. And then there were the local Indian souls that had been trying to protect the people in the house from this demonic, but they weren't strong enough. And they thanked me for removing it and then left.
Let's get to more questions from our audience. Bob is asking, how do the demons see humans as different to us from aliens? Humans are supposed to be under Adamic sin and judged by God.
Demons are kind of weird. They are kind of stupid. I should say they're dumb, not stupid. Okay, I'll say they're dumb, not stupid. They judge a person by external, by like judging a book by its cover. They look at the outside of you. They don't look anything far inside you at all. So, which makes it easy for me to hide Ariel inside until the last moment. But they don't like aliens either, because they're encroaching upon their territory. Demons are very territorial, and they don't like them.
Let's move on to another question here. Tessa is asking, why can we see them from childhood on if we're not supposed to see them at all? Does God give us this gift for a reason?
Some people are more open than others. Some people, like me, as even as a child, all the way up, are open and have abilities that are stronger than others. And it's not that we're not supposed to see them. It's more like a lot of people are like oblivious to it. My husband's one of these people, if you can't touch it, feel it, or see it, it doesn't exist. Of course, he's married to me, and he's seen things now that he wishes he didn't see. But, a lot of people don't want to see it. That's it in a nutshell. I don't ever want to see anything negative. I don't ever want to see a ghost. I don't ever want to see a demon. So therefore, they don't exist, and I'm not going to see them.
Getting back to Deb, she is asking, what would cause a real demon to visit everyday normal people?
They're usually drawn, they can be drawn from several things. It can be drawn from a person with mental illness, a person with weak faith, a person dealing in the paranormal, opening portals by using tarot cards, scrying, pendulum, Ouija board, seances, anything like that will open a portal, and that draws them. It's like striking a match in the blackness. They see it, and they're drawn towards it. There's also people with substance abuse, mental health issues, people with the bad relationships in the way there's a lot of jealousy and anger, frustration, depression. These sort of things will draw these negatives to you. A lot of, I have friends that are Reiki masters, and, they were taught years ago that you don't read about them. If you read about them, talk about them, watch shows about them, that these things are going to seek you out and find you. And that's not true. They can find you. You don't have to. You can never watch one in your entire life or talk about them in your entire life, and they'll find you. If they want to find you, there's nothing that's going to stop them.
All right. Milo is asking, do demons only attack earthly beings, or do they plague alien races as well?
Good question. I've never asked that question of them. Okay, so Michael's saying that they have their own demons, the alien races. So I'll have to ask him more about that later, but he says they have their own demons.
All right. Let's get to Robin's question. Don't demons like to be in houses where there's a lot of death that's happened, be it suicide or murder?
No, not really. The They can be out in the middle of the water. They can be in a car. They can be attached to a piano. They can be attached to an object. They can be bound to something. They are attracted by places like that have seen a lot of pain and suffering. That will attract them. Anything that's negative that happens there, Gettysburg, prisons. Oh, they love prisons because there's so much frustration and anger and depression there. I mean, they're not just attracted to where there's a lot of death, really. I mean, usually if there's a lot of death in some place, it's because there's already one there.
What about haunted objects? We've heard so much about a lot of these dolls being demonic. The most famous being Annabelle, the doll. There's Harold the Haunted Doll, who's said to have the spawn of Satan inside of him as well. Why would a demon possess a doll?
They usually don't, per se, possess the doll. It's really they are probably, 9 times out of 10, they're bound to it. Somebody has done a binding ceremony to bind this entity to the object. They don't usually just say, oh, I want to be a doll today and I'm going to go out there. Because really they can't do a lot of, good old-fashioned demonic, stuff with being a doll. I mean, they might be able to influence, but that's about it. But it's usually because they have been bound to that object, whether it be a doll or a lamp or a piano or a vase.
So why would something bind it to a child's toy?
It's kind of like, the people with, people that do voodoo, and you have a doll to represent the person. If it's kind of like the Dybbuk box. The demon was bound to the box because they were trying to get rid of it. I didn't know any other way. And there's binding ceremonies that you can perform to bind a spirit or a demon to an object. And sometimes it's just the nearest thing you have. I mean, if this thing has been plaguing you, and it's something you don't play with anymore, or something, that you found, you're going to, and you just decide to bind it to that because you got nothing else to bind it to. It's a matter of circumstance.
So can these spirits inside of these objects attack? Because, for instance, you're not supposed to touch the Annabelle doll. You're not supposed to, with Robert the doll in Florida, take a photo of him without asking his permission. There seems to be a lot of rules with these dolls.
A lot of it is the fact that... sorry, they're talking to me from the other side. Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Just wondering why there are so many rules. You're not supposed to touch Annabelle. You're not supposed to, take a photo of Robert the doll without asking his permission. There seems to be a lot of rules.
Yeah, well, these rules are ones that they've evidently found by trial and error. It's not that... It's the humans that make up the rules more than anything. It's not the entity. Remember I told you earlier that entities have these demonics, if they're in the ground or they're attached to something, their influence doesn't strictly be right in front of that doll or right in the same room as that doll. They have an influence that can go for miles. It has no set mileage on them. You know, if they're in a local area and they want to cause problems, they'll cause problems because their influence is not restricted to that particular object. They can influence, a town. They can influence a home. They can influence a person, for miles away.
Jer Bear has a question. He is asking in the Revolution Radio chat room whether or not you've ever toured the Queen Mary in Long Beach and seen the orbs, and if so, what's your opinion?
Oh yeah, I went to Long Beach a few years back, me and my husband and son, and I was there, wanted to go see the first class pool where the little girl is there. And we got lost. It's huge. The place is huge. And I'm like, they told me it was down here and over to the left, and we got lost. My husband says, ask for directions. I'm like, well, I got to find somebody to ask for directions. So, I told him, I said, just stay where you are, and I'll walk down the hall here and see if I can find somebody. I just started down the hall, and here comes this guy down the hall. And he's dressed in a vintage, waiter outfit, bellhop waiter outfit. And I'm like, can you help me? So I'm trying to find the way to the first class pool. He's like, you can see me? I'm like, yeah, I can see you. He's like, thank God. He says, you're the one I've been waiting for. And I'm like, okay. My husband's looking at me. He's like, what? And I raised my eyebrow at him. He says, oh, spook. Okay. I'm just going to stay here. I'm like, fine. So I asked him, I said, can you tell me the way to the first class pool? He says, yeah, but first you got to help me. I'm like, okay, what you need? He says, I want to get out of this place. I want to go home. I said, I'm sure there's been plenty of psychics through here. I said, how come you haven't, gone with them? He says, because I'll know the one I'm waiting for. And I'm like, he says, and you're it. Fine, I'll help you go home. I said, just give me directions to the first class pool. So because of Ariel inside of me, I can create a white light portal. And so I created a small one, and he gave me the directions, and he left. And so we went to the first class pool, and then we saw the girl that was there, and then her aunt was there, and then just talked to them for a little bit and just left them alone. They didn't want to go anywhere, so I'm like, fine. And then we went to the ballroom, and there was a couple there. I heard music, and I'm like, wow, where's the music coming from? Went into the ballroom, and there's this couple dancing. They looked like they were probably from the 40s. And they were ballroom dancing, with the fancy clothes and everything. And I'm like, hello? I said, would you like to cross over? I said, you're hanging around here. And they're like, no, thanks. We're happy here. I'm really, they're like, yes, we met on the ship. We married on the ship. And we spent every anniversary on the ship. So when they died, where did they go? The ship. We're happy. We're dancing. Can't you hear the orchestra? I said, yeah, I can. Okay, we're good. So when
Wonderful
you need,
story.
Yeah, so when you need help, just holler and I'll help you.
Let's get over to Stardust in Revolution Radio. He is asking, do demons have a hierarchy? Say, for instance, do they have more powerful demons to go after people who are closer to God?
They do have a hierarchy. As I said earlier, that the old one, I call it the old ones, are the same sort, is equivalent to archangels. They're the most powerful, the old ones are. And then the next ones down will be equivalent to just, the regular angels. And they are what I call the lesser demons. And then the minions are the lowest form of demonic. And they do have a hierarchy. They respect each other. Demons are kind of like, lesser demons are kind of like sharks, where they have pilot fish, that swim alongside of them. Well, these are the minions. The pilot fish are the minions in this case. And demons travel in packs. So there's always at least one lesser demon and one or two, at least, of the minions with them. Unlike shadow people have a tendency to like their own territory. They don't want to travel in packs. They don't want anybody else in their territory. They don't care whether it's a minion or what it is. They want their own territory, and they don't want anybody in it. So they do have a hierarchy. They may not respect each other, but yeah, they have a hierarchy.
Considering you're from Oregon, have you ever gone through the haunted tour of the Shanghai tunnels in Portland?
I've removed demons out of the Shanghai tunnel 4 times. I told them, I said, if it happens again, I'm going to have to charge you. I never charge them for it, but it's like, first time, I had never been in the Shanghai tunnels until a few years ago, and the leader of my group, Aaron, says, we're been invited to go to the Shanghai tunnels and stuff, and I'm like, okay, fine. The minute I got out of the car, I knew that there was something there, and I'm like, okay. So we were meeting that night to just do a walkthrough of the tunnels, and of course, there were 3 portals there. I can feel the negatives there. I knew right where they were. I did not acknowledge them at that time. And we went to the museum, and I asked the curator, I said, how long have you had the demons down there? And he pulled me aside. He says, shh. He says, nobody knows about them. I said, somebody's been doing, Ouija boards in the back and seances in the back of the tunnels. He's like, I just found out about that. So I made arrangements to go down and remove them. And that was the first time I had done a removal with my group, Northwest Paranormal. And I had been given years ago a recipe for a black salt that would protect against negative entities. They can't cross the barrier of this salt. So I put the salt down and told my crew, do not go outside the salt. I cannot protect you. I said, if you step outside the salt. But so the first time I did the removal, there was 3 of the demonics in there, and they could hear the growling and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I can't pay attention to you. I'm busy. So just don't bother me while I'm removing these things. And they protected them, and I use it a lot. People purchase it from me for protection for their homes and stuff. But yeah, I've been in there 4 times, and the last time was actually removed the last time from a distance. And it's like, that was just like 2 months ago. Because the curator of the museum and the guy that's preserving the historical aspect of it doesn't own the building. He's only preserving it. The other half of the underground of the building belongs to, has other people in there, and they let these people in there, and that's what happens. They open these portals down there, and they don't close them. Urgh.
Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Ron, and then we'll get back to the Shanghai tunnels in a second. But he is asking, can demons be in a church such as the Vatican?
Sure they can. They can be anywhere.
Can a demon repent, though?
No. They probably are there to cause problems. But most of the time, you won't find them there because they're pretty well protected by angelic beings. But every now and then one will sneak in. But it's usually one of the less experienced ones that will sneak in there. One of the younger, lesser demons. They'll, like a teenager, that break in just because.
Makes a lot of sense. So back to the Shanghai tunnels for a quick second. For people who don't know, could you explain what the Shanghai tunnels are?
The Shanghai tunnels were tunnels that were built by the Chinese underneath the ground. They had opium dens and things like that. They would literally Shanghai these people, these sailors, men, to crew the ships. They had a trap door in one of the bars in the saloons, and it would pull them. They would get them over the door, and they'd trip the door, and they'd go down there, fall down there, and they would be put into one of the cells that are down there, and they spread glass along the ground, and they would take their shoes from them so that if they did escape, their feet would be all cut up. But they sold them for like $50 a head to cruise ships.
Kidnapped a lot of women, too, and then, if they didn't like what they were doing, they would throw them into the sea.
Yeah, and they were opium den. They had a lot of sex trafficking, human trafficking down there.
Basically, it's a form of slavery back in the day where it didn't matter what race you were. If they could get you, they would.
Yeah, that's quite true, unfortunately.
I'd like to talk the last few minutes, as we only got about 7 minutes left with you tonight, and this show has flown on by. So thank you so much. About exorcisms. There are a lot of people out there who say they conduct exorcisms. Hollywood has made a lot of money off of exorcism-type movies.
Yeah.
Do you do exorcisms?
I did one last weekend. I've only done a couple of them. This one there were 11 demonics, but it's very touchy. It took 3 hours. It's different when you're pulling them out of a person, and that's the person has to be protected. As well, the person's physical body has to be protected, because if you don't, the person can die. So, this is, like I said, that was only the second one I ever did, and it's Michael and Gabriel come along to protect the physical body so that there's not a problem there. Once these things are removed, then, the person, it's like PTSD, even though they're gone, these poor people suffer afterwards from, PTSD, of having these things in them and going through the hell that they've gone through. And I tell them, you need counseling. You just, not only spiritual counseling, but you need psychological counseling to help with it. It's horrible for the people. It's just horrible. Attachments are one thing. Those are quite simple and straightforward. Exorcisms are very complex. There's so many factors.
So take us through what happens during an exorcism.
Basically, I don't know how other people do it, Hollywood and stuff like that, but what happens is Ariel comes forward, and I lay hands on the person, and she pulls them out one by one, and Gabriel and Michael stand beside and wait for them as she pulls them out. Once there are none left, then the work is done. But what they do is they take and they cast these things down until there's no more there. Then what you have to do is put white light into their body so that it purges it of any and all negative energy residual that will be there. Because if you don't do that and the negative energy is still within the person, it's going to attract other ones.
So when people get possessed, what happens to them?
It's kind of like, it depends upon it. Some is just influence, and some is, a lot of it is not full-time possession. It comes and goes at will. The entity comes and goes at will. And you don't find possessions, true possessions, as often as Hollywood would like you to think they do. I mean, you have attachments, you have influence, you have infestation. So true, actual possession is far and few between. Like I said, most of them are ones that will come and go, so it's more like influence. But true possession is they're in there, in the person 24/7. Their consciousness goes to the back. They don't, it's not like when Ariel comes forward, and for me, where I know what's going on, I see everything, I hear everything. When you're possessed, the person doesn't see or hear anything. They don't even know what happened. They have no clue what's going on or what's happening, because their whole consciousness is pushed to the back and subdued.
So when that happens, is the person even aware of what is going on or what is inside of them, or are they just locked inside their own body without memory?
A lot of them are aware that something's going on, but they're not sure what it is. And then some of them are just like locked in there, and they haven't a clue as to what's going on, why they're doing it, what they did, where they went, who they talked to, nothing.
So when that demon is in there, does that demon have free reign of the person's body?
Yep, absolutely.
So like we see on TV with the thrashing around and scathing demonic voices, that is all true.
It's not so dramatic. It can happen. It can, have a different voice come out. The facial features may even change. The thrashing and stuff is not usually unless, they're under attack by a person trying to remove it, or the person inside is fighting back and trying to regain control. But yeah, they pretty much can do what they want. Even kill the person.
Even kill a person.
Yep, kill the body that it's in.
So if a demon kills a person, do they get the soul?
They can get the soul. It just depends. They can trap the soul. Not really get it per se, but trap it in the physical world. Kind of make it like a slave. And that's what happened with the one I removed in Battleground. Was the demon killed the wife, basically, and her soul was trapped there, and the demon wouldn't let it go.
We only have about 1 minute left with you tonight, June, and I would love it if you could tell us about your books and where our audience can find them or get a hold of you.
You can find my books. They're all available on Amazon.com. You just have to look up June Lundgren. I have one. The first one is called The Medium's Guide to the Paranormal. And the second one is Paranormal Encounters. It's my real-life Paranormal Encounters. Paranormal Encounters 2. And then there's The Dark Side of the Paranormal, which is all about dark entities, what will protect you, what won't protect you, how to identify them, their weaknesses. I have a paranormal romance called Out of Time, and I have the first in a series of books, 8 books, based on the archangels that are in the world today. It's a fantasy. It's called Demon Seekers. First one is Demon Seekers, The Journey Begins. I am working on Demon Seekers Into Darkness. That's the next one. It's based in England. And my websites are www.demonseer.com or mysticconnections.org. And I have my group is called Ghosts and Girls Paranormal. I have a YouTube channel where I have videos of removals, and also on Twitter and Facebook. And I'm going to be at the Oregon Ghost Conference, March 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I'll probably be lecturing on the dark side. And otherwise, you can find me in any other places.
June, thank you so much for being on Space Out Radio tonight. You hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking us in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the program, Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada is back with Ghosts of the Great White North as we get into Toronto ghost tours starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to say thank you to my great team who's working diligently to put this show on the map, but most of all, I say thank you to all of you in the chat rooms, all of you on Twitter, listening at home or in your vehicles. A real appreciation of broadcast to you wherever you are. Keep sharing our show. Keep moving it forward, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night.